On this edition of City Profile, we'll be talking with members of the Human Rights Commission of Paducah, and we'll be looking at the 4th annual Evening of Performance. Stay with us. Hello and welcome to City Profile. I'm Tom Butler, and on today's show we have, as I said in our opening tease, members of the Paducah Human Rights Commission. You've all been here before,
Yes.
and I'd like to invite you back every year because we've got a special event coming up, which we know as the Evening of Performance, the 4th annual Evening of Performance. So we like to let people know what's going on with that, and we're going to do that. But first, let's talk about the Human Rights Commission, and with us today is Andrew Corner, the chairman of the Human Rights Commission. And I think that many people in Paducah are unclear about what the Paducah Human Rights Commission does. In fact, I know that there's a Kentucky Human Rights Commission as well, and many people just don't know what your role and your function is. And could you just talk about that for a little bit?
Absolutely, Tom. What the Paducah Human Rights Commission does is we enforce the human rights ordinance of the City of Paducah. And what that ordinance basically says is that in public accommodations, housing, and employment, you can't be discriminated against. And what our Human Rights Commission does is receive complaints from citizens who believe they've been discriminated against in these areas. We investigate those. We see if there's probable cause that there was any discrimination present based on the current law as it is right now, and we'll work with that citizen to try to eliminate the discrimination if there is discrimination, or politely advise them to know, based on the law as it is right now, there has been no discrimination. We'll receive anywhere, Tom, from 5 to 15 complaints a month. Most of them get worked through informally, but the most important distinction that I'd like our citizens to know is that our ordinance does not allow us to provide monetary relief to someone who comes in and complains. If someone comes in and says, well, I've been discriminated against in my employment setting, and I want you all to help me recover some money. I want my job back, I want to recover some money, I want to recover back wages. Basically what we have to do is refer them on to the Kentucky Human Rights Commission, who does have that authority. So that's the basic thing that I'd like to tell you and the citizens of Paducah about what differentiates us from the Kentucky Human Rights Commission.
So first of all, you said you look at areas of discrimination in housing, in employment, and was there a third area?
Public facilities.
Public facilities. Mm-hmm. And so I guess, could you just take me through the procedure? If I felt like I was discriminated against in some way, could I be a candidate for services by the Kentucky or by the Paducah Human Rights
Absolutely,
Commission?
because our discrimination ordinance covers race, color, and I'm reading this off my little pamphlet here, so I won't forget. Religion, national origin, gender, age, between 40 and 70, and disability. For instance, so in your situation, so if you came in to see us and said, well, I think I've been discriminated against because I went to a restaurant and they asked me to leave or sit into a certain situation because I'm Caucasian, then you'd be covered. Does that normally happen? Probably not, but you would be subject to that. Also, gender, someone discriminated against you because you're a man, you'd be covered there too.
Maybe, I think, since I'm getting way old, it might be an age discrimination thing in some areas like that. I mean, if I were fired, hopefully I won't be, but if I were fired because I'm an older worker now, then would that be an area that you would look into?
Absolutely. If you fit in that age category, somewhere between 40 and 70, we would look into a possible age discrimination situation with you if you came in to complain.
I'm really close to the low end of that
Absolutely.
range,
Aren't we all?
So it's probably not going to happen, but just wanted to make that clear. So I come in, what happens when a person comes in and says, I feel like I've been discriminated against?
We have a full-time executive director who's very well versed on these kind of things. He will walk you through your complaint. He'll see what basically your complaint is. You'll fill out a complaint in writing, and then he will investigate that complaint with whoever you feel has discriminated against you. In other words, using the restaurant scenario, public facilities. He would say, listen to the restaurant owner or restaurant manager, I've had a complaint, here's what the guy says. And we get the other side of the story. You know, Don Henley of the Eagles always said there's three sides to every story, yours, mine, and the truth. So we kind of figure out what both sides of the story are, and then possibly if there is a third side of what the truth is, and then we'll make a determination with that citizen about what their next step would be based on the facts as we have investigated.
And so then that starts the process of finding some resolution to this.
If there can be a resolution that doesn't include money, in other words, for instance, all you may want is an apology, or all you may want is some assurance that the company will put a policy in place that won't discriminate against you where you're sitting in a restaurant. And those things we can work out.
Could you work out getting my job back if I was fired because I'm too old?
Absolutely. If you didn't
prove
want, if you didn't, if the proof is there, we can't force the company to take you back. Then we'd refer you to a lawyer or the Kentucky Human Rights Commission if you want money, and then we'd go from there. But if we could mediate a situation between you and your employer, by say you're 100% right, Tom, and they did fire you because you were 42, which is pretty close to your age, I'm sure.
Real close.
And we met with your employer and said, you know, I think Tom might have a pretty good case here. You fired him because he was 42. You said you were firing him because he's 42. You're either right for a lawsuit or you're right for the Kentucky Human Rights Commission to come in and help Tom get some damages from you. Then they may, bingo, see the light of day and give you your job back.
Okay. I do want to talk about the Kentucky Human Rights Commission a little bit in a minute, but I'd also like to ask our other guests, Bernice Belt and Martha Agotte. You are commissioners on the Paducah Human Rights Commission. Highly paid position?
Oh, I tell you what, we're paid so highly. We don't know what to do with all of it. We are volunteers, and we kind of laugh about how we're highly paid, but we look at that as being a privilege to volunteer to serve in this capacity. Commissioner Agotte and I are women of different ethnicities, and so we bring flavor, if you will, to the board to not only understand the heart and the conditions of females at whatever ages we cover under our jurisdiction, but we also have a close and intimate understanding of ethnicities. And so at the very same time, being women, we also relate to women who are not women of what we would refer to as ethnicities, of Caucasian. And so we get to serve as volunteer commissioners.
Martha, why do you think it's important to serve? And service to your community is important, but it's also, I mean, it's hard. It's time consuming. I assume you have a passion for what you do, or you wouldn't do it.
Right.
Why do you do it?
One, you get a sense of fulfillment that you are giving back to the community that you live in, but it's also an educational opportunity for us as well. We learn about our citizens and our community, what is going on behind doors that we might not have had the opportunity to learn otherwise. So that's important because a lot of times we can continue to educate other citizens. We're able to educate organizations, churches about our services and possibly turn things around. They might have a certain notion of what they see in our community and we can help educate them on.
This question just came to my mind. I'd like all of your perspective. What do you think the most important thing the Paducah Human Rights Commission does is? I mean, is it to advocate for those who feel like they are discriminated against, or is it to educate those who need to be educated? Or is there something I'm not thinking about?
I think it's a two-prong. You know, it's both. We can't say one's more important than the other because as we're able to serve our citizens, we're also educating them and we're a resource for them. Because if we're not able to assist them, if it isn't a discrimination case or if we have to refer them elsewhere, we're also educating them on what other resources are available in our community.
I was going to say that the first role is because of the structure and the nature of the Human Rights Commission. The foundation is advocacy. But as a result of the advocacy and the passion that each of the commissioners bring to this board, and we have a very unique group of men and women. We're just, and I really, really hate to boast, but I do in the most positive way, is this is probably the most compassionate, sensitive, and yet realistic and intelligent group of men and women I've worked with in my adult life. And so the foundation, of course, is advocacy. But as a result of that, and then the hearts and the minds of the commissioners, then we simultaneously are servants in the true sense of the word.
You mentioned your role as a female on the board. Have you ever had to deal with issues of compensation inequity? I mean, say a female's doing the same job as a guy, is that considered, and being paid less, is that considered an area of discrimination that you would deal with?
It's an area of discrimination that we hear frequently. It's an area of discrimination that is not covered by our city ordinance, so we're going to have to refer that somewhere else. So we'll do that to the Kentucky Human Rights Commission or to the local wage and hour people. For instance, if a female is doing the same job as a male and not getting the same compensation, there are at least two areas that we can refer those people to get help.
Okay. Well, since we went back there, and I wanted to anyway, would you talk about, Andrea, a little bit about the relationship between the Paducah Human Rights Commission and the Kentucky Human Rights Commission? I know the issue of compensation is foremost, because that's what you mentioned. Paducah Human Rights Commission has no power to say, okay, you're sued for thousands of dollars and can enforce that, but the Kentucky Human Rights Commission does have that power?
Yes, they do, Tom. They can. What we'll do is, if a person comes into us and they have a discrimination case and they want money, if we believe it's a case with some merit, it'll be forwarded on the Kentucky Human Rights Commission, and then they will also investigate that. Their attorneys will work with the attorneys from the people who've been complained against, and possibly there'll be a money resolution handled out of court. If not, that person will be free to go to court thereafter and seek compensation in the court system, just like everybody else. But we work very closely with them because, like I said earlier, a lot of our people come in and they don't want the situation only taken care of with a non-monetary resolution. They want some compensation for it. So based on our ordinance, we refer them to Kentucky Human Rights Commission.
And so you, as the chairman, do you make that determination when something goes, or is it a vote of the board? I'm just trying to figure out the whole process here. When I come in and I say, this is what's happening to me and I want money from it, who investigates that? And because discrimination is rarely overt these days, it seems like a difficult thing to prove unless somebody's just not very smart and says, I'm going to fire you because you're black, or I'm going to fire you because you're old, or I'm going to fire you because you're a woman. You know, people don't do that much anymore.
That's true.
So how do you investigate covert discrimination?
Well, that's what our executive director does, and he's kind of where the rubber meets the road. Is he is well versed on the law. He gets out with the person in the community that is complaining, sees what their side of the story is, talks to the business or whoever else is involved and sees what their side of the story is. And if it's a situation where the citizens wants monetary relief, it generally doesn't get to the whole commission. Our executive director will refer them directly to the Kentucky Human Rights Commission, who will then it'll be a handoff. They'll take the ball and go from there.
Okay. What other relationship do you have other than referring people to the Kentucky Human Rights Commission? You were mentioning something before the show that we were going to talk about.
The Kentucky Human Rights Commission just recently came down and did a listening tour. What they've done is they've sent people out in the communities across the state to listen to what problems people are having in different parts of the state. In western Kentucky, I think they came to Cadiz, they came to Paducah and Mayfield. In Paducah, we had a meeting with them. I was there, about 26 people showed up. About 4 or 5 people were very vocal about their situations, and which, believe it or not, didn't make me feel bad. You know, if the Kentucky Human Rights Commission comes down, we have 26 people show up just to see what's going on and be educated, and only 4 of them, believe that they've been discriminated against and have valid cases. I'm not saying that the city of Paducah doesn't have problems in race relations, but that's not bad. When you have the state commission come down and only 4 people are vocally complaining, whether they have merit or not, that shows that this city is not too bad as far as race relations goes.
Well, and that leads me to my next question for Bernice and Martha. How far have we come? And I would like, I know that we've come a long way since the 1960s, but let's talk about more specifically Paducah and your perspective on where we have been and how far we have come and how far we have to go.
Well, the comment you made just a moment ago about the covert type of discrimination, I think that the difference then and now is that we've gone from the overt to the covert discrimination. It is very unfortunate, but it is realistic to understand and to go on and be honest about it, is that there is discrimination, there has always been discrimination, and as long as human beings are roaming the earth, there will always be discrimination. I do say that our court system is one of the reasons why we've improved so much over the decades. I appreciate the fighting, the loss of lives and property and families in the past decades, past 100, 200 years, because that's what it took to get the attention, I think, of the legal system. And whenever you have a number of people who are standing for the right thing, then right people respond. And so our court system has matured. And so that's a wonderful thing, because that offsets citizens, especially in positions of power and authority. And of course, we know there are people who have power and authority who have no business having power and authority. However, that is reality, and we have to work within the scope of reality. I do believe that a great number of accomplishments have been made along the lines of civil rights / human rights. But because we evolve moment by moment, not decade by decade, we also must admit that we have a great deal of work to do. That's one of the reasons why I'm proud to serve with the Human Rights Commission, because it's going to take every organization that really cares about people, and it takes every man and woman who really cares about people to collaborate and to do our very best to make life, the whole process of living, being citizens on this earth, to have more productive, effective, comfortable, peaceful lives. And yes, we do have much work to do, and we're going to do our part.
Martha, what do you think?
One of the things for me personally is to see that people broaden their understanding, that they can't continue the same treatment or the same way of thinking that they had. For instance, something as simple as a joke at a workplace. They have to realize that what they think might be humorous to some is not to all. So there's more sensitivity awareness that has to continue. It started, but it hasn't quite gotten there yet. So there's still some work in that aspect from what I've seen.
Okay. Now, I'd like to challenge you just a little bit, because what you described to me is sometimes seen as being politically correct.
Right.
And sometimes a joke's just a joke. And do people sometimes within your organization bring to you a complaint that is not valid because they're just not good at what they do? They didn't get fired because of any piece of discrimination. They didn't get fired because of their skin color, their gender, or their age. They're just not good at what they do. What do you do in that kind of situation? Do you tell them? Do you say, do you support them? I'm sorry, it has to be this way because you must be good at what you do. Can we address that issue just
Absolutely,
for a minute?
Tom. Not every complaint or complainant that comes in our door has a valid legal basis for a discrimination complaint. And yes, we do tell them that. We do tell them that tactfully, as best we can. But not everybody that comes in our door, I'd say, correct me ladies if I'm wrong, a great many who don't have actually valid legal discrimination cases.
Right.
So that's part of our job. And that part of that job is the education that Ms. Belt and Ms. Agotte talked about. We'll say, listen, Tom, let me tell you about your case, and let me tell you why it isn't discrimination. And so that's part of the
So
deal.
you don't make an assumption immediately about a person's validity of their complaint until you know more of the story. You don't automatically say, well, they're here, they must have been wronged, and we're going to help them. Or Is it, is the commission objective, I guess is what I'm saying. I know you have a job to do to stop discrimination, but it's also your job to see if it's actually happening.
Absolutely.
Very objective. We've got a diverse group of people among us on our commission. We have 2 lawyers. And so, there's a difference between feeling discriminated against and actually being discriminated against.
Right.
And that's part of the educational process that we go through with each person that comes in our door. So we feel good about that. If we've raised the level of intelligence in our community about what discrimination is and what it isn't, then we think we've got a good result there.
That's great. Let's switch gears now. Talk about a happy subject, although the Human Rights Commission is a happy subject, sometimes discrimination is not. So let's talk about the evening of performance. 4th annual, unbelievable. Just talk about it a little bit. You're the event organizer, Bernice.
I get to be.
Well, that's a big deal. I know how hard it is to
Yes.
do a job like that.
But you know what? When that word passion that you used earlier, when you have the passion for it, as you do and what you do, as these guys who are running these cameras and these computers, you have a passion for what you do. It's work, but it's enjoyable and you love it and you're glad to do it. Well, that's how we feel about the evening of performance. It is our 4th one. We started at Paducah Tillman High School. We had 21 performers then, and we found, that is just too many. We would take 121, but we were able to flow very well. It was very successful. Our city leaders, elected and volunteer, were very impressed, very happy. It was the challenge of the mayor and the city commission for the Paducah Human Rights Commission, which is pretty much a quiet organization in its nature, but they wanted us to get out there and to be more visible. And so the idea was to have an evening of performance which celebrates diversity in every form, but to also educate at the very same time about what we do and why we do it and who it affects and who it's for. And so we've led up to the 4th evening of performance. That first year, I was doing some counting and I got busy and had to stop counting, but I counted over 250 people who were in attendance. The second year, there were over 340, over 350, somewhere around there the second year. Then the third year, we surpassed the total for the first 2 years. So the third year we had over 450, 500, somewhere around there. We start counting for a while and then we just get busy and caught up and we just stop counting. In the Carson Center for the last 2 years, the bottom level in the main auditorium seats over 900 people, if I'm not mistaken. That includes the straight back chairs in the very back for people who are not mobile enough to go up and down the steps. And last year, we filled almost every seat on the main level, and there were several people who sat in the balcony because that was just what they preferred to do.
Wow. Give us the details, the dates, times, and is there a charge for people who come to the audience?
It is free of charge. All we want you to do is bring yourselves, bring your excitement, and have yourself a good old time. We are going to schedule 16 to 17 performers. We had 17 last year. It worked out real well. It is May the 21st of this year at the Carson Center again in the main auditorium, beginning at 7 p.m. And we do really, really well in how we flow, and so we're ending by 9 p.m. We have 8 scheduled performers to date. We have 8 more slots. We will end our deadline for receiving the applications for the performers is April the 15th. You can go on the City of Paducah website. You can pull the press release and the registration form. You can email me at haroldbelt@comcast.net. You can call me at 270-554-2804. We are excited already because this year we're adding a stand-up comedian to the performance lineup. And we have some persons who are in demand and are coming back this year. I'm not going to tell you who they are. We are going to use this opportunity at different intervals, as we've done in the last 3 years, for the commissioners themselves to go to the mic and share different aspects of the Human Rights Commission, the educational aspect.
That's the educational
Exactly.
aspect for the commissioners to come up and
Yes.
talk about the Human Rights Commission. How do you choose the performers? You said you could have 100, but you can't have 100.
Right.
Do you have a committee or a subcommittee that chooses those, or is it first come, first serve? How is that done?
It is based on the genre of the performing arts. It is also based on first come, first serve, based on the genre of the performing arts. We have dance, we have song, poetry, prose, short drama. We have dramatic interpretation, duo interpretation. We have a classical pianist. We have bands. We have quartets, small groups. Several different genres of performing arts. And the 8 that have been chosen already are based on first served, the type of genre of performing arts. And also, we have to be very careful that we respect the community, the mission of the Human Rights Commission, conduct, dress, language. And so there are some very, very strong standards and expectations of the performers as well. So they all have to fall within those categories.
We have a very short time left. At the end of this program, we're going to show a minute or so of past performances. So as we leave, give us the dates and times again, important things that you want people to know for the 4th annual Evening of Performance.
The 4th annual Evening of Performance is May 21st of this year, 7 p.m. to 9 p.m. at the Carson Center in Paducah, Kentucky. We have 8 more slots. Please contact us at Harold Belt, one word, at Comcast.net. You may also go by our office in City Hall here in Paducah. You can call me at 270-554-2804. We're very accommodating. We are going to ask you to please look at the City of Paducah website, look at the press release and the registration form that you can also download from there and send it to me by email if you wish. We're excited. Get excited, Paducah. And we ask everyone to come to this free event, learn more about the Human Rights Commission, and enjoy the diversity that's going to be on that great stage at the Carson Center.
Andrew Corner.
Tom, let me plug one more thing. The Paducah Human Rights Commission meets every month, first Monday of every month, 3 o'clock, City Hall. We welcome guests.
Andrew Corner, Bernice Belt, and Martha Agotte, thank you for coming and joining me today on City Profile. And thank you for joining us. We'll leave you with some performances from the 3rd Evening of Performance. Once again, I'm Tom Butler. Thank you for being here.
Come along.
See, I stopped worrying about what people had to say. Thank you. See, I stopped worrying about what people had to say because, see, I used to be homeless, struggling, living day to day. But thanks to God, I know I've been changed. Thank you.